Dear friends, I'd like to welcome you to episode number 11 of Data Science Live. My name is Mr. Campanell, and I'm here to do a little bit of live coding with the R programming language, enjoy a little bit of mukbang. Today we have Korean banchan, just some fermented Korean vegetables. In order to maybe celebrate that Data Science Live is now on Africa TV in South Korea. It's really the first streaming platform outside of the United States that I'm on. So I'm just kind of thrilled to be on it and to have an international audience. So that's why I've got some banchan today. And hopefully provide a little companionship in the next 20 to 30 minutes or so. I think it's going to be, this episode's going to be a little bit on the shorter side because it's just a couple dplyr functions, but they're very important functions that we need to learn. And particularly the bind rows for binding data frames. I use that one quite a bit in my professional work. It's a very handy function, and I'm going to show it to you today. I'd like to say, I'd like to loosen my tie and let's get started, but it's already loose. It's a really hot day here in Texas, so I've already loosened my tie here before we even get started. And the other thing I want to do, which I'm trying to do on every episode, is to give some shout outs to my new subscribers. I have a few new subscribers on YouTube, but they're anonymously private, so I can't give you the shout out. But on Twitch, I have 3 new subscribers, and I'd like to give shout outs to Raw Run Mamu, Shiham Amaro, and Splash ADF. So I'd really appreciate you subscribing to Data Science Live. And I'd like to say, let's get started. So today it's really what we're going to be doing is binding data frames. And there's 2 functions that I use in dplyr. One is called bind rows, and the other one is bind calls for binding columns. And I'm going to demonstrate both of those. So let's get started with the libraries that we're going to need today. And let's start with it. We're going to need dplyr, of course. And then we're going to need, let's put that in here. We're going to need readr. Okay. So that's what I've got. Those are the 2 ones. And I'm just going to run these, get them loaded into the environment. And that's good. Now, I've got 2 data frames that I'm going to use, and I'm just going to pull up an example of the data that I have here. This is from the International Monetary Fund, and the data that we're going to be putting in here today is the Consumer Price Index year-over-year change. You can see on here that, I think this here, yeah, you can export it, and it exports as an Excel file. This data site really made it created that data export for the graph, and the graph in Excel, and not so much data that you're going to be able to use within the R programming language. So I had to do a little bit of finessing to it to kind of get it into the data format that I wanted. And once I got that into it, I created a CSV file, put it on datasciencelive.com, and that's kind of what I'm going to be reading from today. But before I do that, I'm just going to kind of copy and paste these. So if you wanted to follow along with me, you can do that yourself. I'll put this one in here. So that's the Spain for year over year. And then we have another one for Netherlands. And I'm just going to copy these data frames here and paste it into the chat so that you can have those. And there they are for you to maybe pull in on if you want to follow along with me and code with me. So it's time to get started. And what do I want to do? I want to just read in my data. Okay, so that's right. That's the first thing you got to do. So we're going to put our comment in here, read data. And let's do Spain CPI year over year. And I'm going to read CSV, right, using the readr function. And I'm going to copy that again from the chat, I believe. Yeah, just copy it here from the chat and put it in here. I have to put my quotes in here as well. So let's read in, let's go in and read in this data. It's over just a little bit more so we can see it. Okay. Pull it in, run it off. Okay, now let's take a look at the data and see what we have here. So I've got the column is country. We've got the years here from 2010 to 2019, I think. And then we've got our CPI year over year. And if I just pull this up, this is the graph here, 2010 to 2019. Here's your CPI from year over year on the y-axis. And, you know, we can take a look at the trend here. It kind of went down from 2011 to 2015, slightly picked up until 2019 or 2017, and then went down a couple years. So this year over year is pretty much a financial term, really to indicate it's kind of I call it a lagging performance indicator. Because you're really kind of looking at the past, you're not really looking into the future, and it's used to kind of give a feel for how you're doing kind of this year as compared to last year. So it's used quite extensively a lot in financial reporting. Just pull that in here, and then our next one that we're going to read in is we're going to read in Netherlands. So and CPI year over year, read CSV, and let's put this, let's put this in here, and I'm going to again copy and paste that from the chat. I'm going to put a quote in here so I don't have to do that what I did the last time. So here we see our data. I'm going to highlight it and then run it. Okay, and now we see our Netherlands data, and it should look pretty much like the Spain data, country, year, CPI, year over year. Right, same columns. Okay, so the data set is in, and what we want to do is we want to combine Spain and Netherlands into one data frame. And the function that I'm going to use is the bind rows function out of dplyr. So I'm going to put a little comment here, and we're going to just say bind rows, and it is. We're going to call this all rows. And we're going to say bind rows, right? dplyr, you're seeing that. And the two data frames are going to be the Spain and Netherlands. So Spain CPI year over year and Netherlands year over year. So that is a simple command. The data frames are pretty good because we all have the same column, so everything should kind of connect together or concatenate together, as sometimes people like to say. So I'm going to run this. And great, we've got 20 observations, 3 variables, and we should see our Spain as our first 10 variables, and then Netherlands, the last 10, and our years and our data values for CPI year over year. Good. Okay, so that is the bind rows function. And now I'm going to go on next with the bind calls. And what the bind calls is going to do is it's going to create, we're going to expect to have 10 rows, but we're going to have 2 columns for each of the CPI variables, and the kind of indicator column is going to be the year. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to rename my columns so that we can identify what the countries are. Let's start with Netherlands. And this is going to be, we're going to take our Netherlands data frame, and I'm going to select I'm going to select year, I believe, and CPI, year over year. And then I want to put this in, and I want to rename CPI year over year to, let's say, Netherlands CPI year over year. Okay, so rename Netherlands, we'll just call it just CPI, shorten it up, equals CPI year over year. So let's take this one. And I'll just take a look at it. Okay, so we got year, Netherlands CPI, and 10 records. So that's good. Now I want to add another column right over here to the right of the Netherlands CPI called Spain CPI. Yeah, but before I do that, I still need to kind of work on kind of creating this data frame. So just call this Spain, and it's Spain CPI year over year. Okay, and I'm just going to select here year, select CPI year over year, because that's the only column that we need. And we are going to rename Spain, call it Spain CPI, and that's going to be CPI. Run this. And Spain, 10 observations and 1 variable. So we've got our number of observations for Spain. We've got ours for the Netherlands. And we're going to put it together to where we're going to have the year and the Netherlands CPI and the Spain CPI in the columns. And we're going to use the bind columns for this. So get to here. We're going to call this all calls. Bind calls. We're going to use the Netherlands first, followed by Spain. And run this. So all calls, 10 observations, 10 records, and 3 variables. So let's take a look at it. Great. So we've got our year, we've got our Netherlands CPI, our Spain CPI, and all the years from 2010 to 2019. So this would be good to have. You would probably want this data frame if you really wanted to put another graph on here for Spain, and the net, or I'm sorry, another graph on here, another line graph for Netherlands, and see how they compare to each other. So that's the two functions here are the bind columns and the bind rows. Handy for data frame manipulation in dplyr. So I'm just going to kind of make this a little bit bigger here so you can see it. And now the mukbang tag, and I'm going to pull it out here for you while you practice. So let's take a look and see what we have here. Oh, let's pull that back. Yep. So these are the veggies, and I'll try to point each one of them out here. So I've got some fermented bean sprouts over here. This appears to be eggplant. I've got radish, some white radish here. And then I've got kind of the staple of Korean food, and that is kimchi, which is fermented cabbage. So I'm going to enjoy a little bit of this here. Welcome all the viewers here from Africa TV and South Korea. I hope you're going to learn a little bit, and let me chow down, practice a little bit while I sample a little bit of these. I'm not as nimble with the chopsticks as a lot of people are, but you get to see me. You get to see me kind of practice with it and use a little bit of it. Okay. So, on my favorites of these, I'm a fan of the kimchi. I guess I've been eating it for quite a few number of years, so I've gotten used to it. And then the bean sprouts are also one of my favorites on this plate as well. This is the first time that I've tasted the eggplant, and I've had some of the white radish before, but its season's a little bit different than what I used to. I'm used to most of the times in Texas, you get the white radish, and it's kind of a really vinegar forward type of flavor to it. So I think that I'm about done. I'm about done with all the with the mukbang or Korean bonchon today, and I'm going to wrap it up and let's put this away. Okay. I think I'm also going to get a little bit of water because there's a little bit of spiciness on the kimchi. So I'm going to grab this. Pull down another one, and let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do the wrap up. We have a couple IMF data sets here. You can pull it off the site data.imf.org. A lot of data. It's not as nice as the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization data. You can get it a little bit clunky, and then there's some paywalls on this data as well. So it's deep though. It's really deep. So a lot of data sets out here for you to try. So I read in the data, put in the bind rows. The data was all formatted properly for me to do the bind rows. And if we take a look at all rows, we've got 20 of these that we just kind of stacked them, one by one by one. They all kind of flow down. The other one where we had to kind of manipulate the data and bind the columns, so that's stacking across, right? Column, 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 column. You want to keep the same number of records in your data frame, and then just kind of stack them across for those columns. And that's the bind calls. Two really handy functions in dplyr. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you learned a little bit here. I will post the blog on datasciencelive.com so you can have the code to copy and paste and keep practicing on it. Copy and pasting on code is it's something that I do a lot. It's how I learn, and I think you can do it too. Please subscribe to all my channels, whatever one you're on, whatever streaming service you use, and turn on the notifications for when I go live. Again, episode number 11, I really appreciate your companionship with me here today. And until the next cast, goodbye for now, dear friends.